Hello everyone, Crystal Crawford, the CEO of Girl Scouts of Historic Georgia, and I am so delighted to be here today in our Girl Scout to Trailblazer series with Rear Admiral BryerJoyner. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. It's great to be here.
And what brings you to Savannah?
Well, I am so honored to be in Savannah. I'm a Savannah native, and we in the Navy have these executive outreach opportunities where we come and engage with the community and just reestablish the relationships that we have from the past. And so we came here during St. Patrick's Day week because what better time to reconnect with our partners than a week that we're all celebrating the luck of the Irish.
And did you imagine when you were a Girl Scout here in Savannah that the whole town would turn to Girl Scout green during St. Patrick's Day?
You know, when I was a Girl Scout, St. Patrick's Day didn't really mean anything. It was the day you stayed away from downtown because it got really crowded. So I love the fact that everything has turned to Girl Scout green on St. Patrick's Day, and you folks were in the float, and it looked like the girls had a wonderful time.
They did. In fact, one of the highlights from yesterday was you coming over to speak to our girls. We had about 70 Girl Scouts from Ohio, Texas, Colorado, and of course the birthplace of Girl Scouts, Georgia. That was their highlight. So what was some of your highlights when you spoke to the girls yesterday?
Well, you know, when I spoke to the girls yesterday, it was a little hard because it was kind of noisy and they're a very large group. But I really appreciated the opportunity to just share a little bit of my story and the questions that I got about, you know, what would a good day in cybersecurity look like really versus a bad day, really made me think about how do I explain that to somebody who doesn't necessarily do that every day. And so just being able to have those different conversations with young folks is really energizing for me.
Coming back to Savannah for the St. Patrick's Day parade and speaking to those Girl Scouts must have evoked some special memories from your Girl Scout journey. What would you like to share some of your fondest Girl Scout memories?
Absolutely. So I was actually a Girl Scout in Stone Mountain, Georgia, and that was really a wonderful place to be because it's fairly contained. You know, Savannah can be very expansive. And so in Stone Mountain, Georgia, we had a small Girl Scout troop, and we really focused on the standards of, you know, earning our badges. Occasionally we went to the camps, but my best memories were around selling the Girl Scout cookies. One, because I'm a huge fan of the Girl Scout cookies, Thin Mints in particular. But the opportunity to just set the goal and work towards the goal. This was before social media, and so in order to sell enough cookies, you either were walking a lot, we hadn't really started setting up outside of the supermarkets, we hadn't really started selling at our parents' work, and so it's been fascinating over the years to see the evolution of how Girl Scouts have imagined different ways of selling more cookies to meet their really impressive goals compared to what we did back in the day. So that has always been a very fond memory of mine.
Those cookies. In fact, yesterday, if we sold a box of cookies for every person that said, "Where are the cookies?" we would have sold out and hit every record ever.
Really would have. I think that they were hoping that you would just throw a few cookies out to the crowd. And you know, to that point, when we moved from Stone Mountain to Savannah, I lost that Girl Scout connection because in Stone Mountain we had parents and troop leaders that were willing to really dedicate their time and give us those opportunities. When I moved to Savannah, we moved into an area that didn't have that kind of support structure. So I did lose that connection. And so for any parents, any troop leaders that are watching this, I really want to thank them because what they're doing is really setting the foundation for their girls' success in the future. And that's just a tremendous investment in our future.
I'm so glad that you said that because they don't get enough thank you, and they are truly the backbone of Girl Scouts. And we also did a study with Girl Scout USA that showed that Girl Scouts who had troop leaders stayed in Girl Scouts much longer than Girl Scouts who had like mixed troops, or we call it direct delivery, where we pay staff to go into schools and in different areas to do Girl Scout programming. And so that relationship really is the foundation, and I don't know one Girl Scout alum that hasn't given all the credit to the troop leader for their successes. So thank you for that shout out.
Absolutely.
Well, you talked a lot about going door to door, the miles that you had to walk when you were selling those cookies. And we just heard here at the Girls Center a troop leader that shared her daughter sold 6,000 boxes of cookies. That's insane.
Isn't that amazing?
So I'm sure, much like the Navy, you had to have some discipline, some resilience to be able to hit your goals. Will you talk a little bit more about what those early moments in Girl Scouts taught you that help you today in the Navy?
And so, back in the day, you know, I was second grade, maybe third grade when I started in the Girl Scouts, and you don't really understand about planning. Right? You go to school, everything's planned out for you. You don't have to worry about homework as much. And so one of the things that I think the Girl Scouts brought is, one, the ability to set a goal. Because most of us are fairly competitive. And you know that other people are trying to sell the same thing. And so you've got a little bit of that competition going. So you set a goal, go, okay, how can I get to that goal? Now, I did have one benefit. My mother cut hair, and so in her shop she would have people coming in and out, and I did have the opportunity to not necessarily get sign-ups per se, but to have the cookies there to be able to sell as they came in and out. So I had a little bit of innovation, not a lot, but to just figure out, okay, how many houses am I going to have to go to? Where are those houses located? And hopefully plan the path so you're headed uphill on the way out and downhill on the way back. Stone Mountain's very hilly. Coming up with the right plan in order to achieve the goal, I thought was something that I definitely developed in the Girl Scouts.
Well, there has to be a lot of planning, especially when you don't have the social media and the technology that we have today, and the safety factors and issues. You know, we're talking cybersecurity. Because that you're the Rear Admiral in cybersecurity, and so thinking forward, and I'm sure you can now see why we need that position in our country, not just in the military. Where do you see us going in cybersecurity and AI, and why should those things be important for the Girl Scouts of tomorrow?
I think, so I talk about cyber literacy because I think it's incredibly important. We teach children about road safety. Look both ways before you cross the street, stranger danger. We teach them how to operate safely in the physical world. I think we need to continue doing that in the cyber world because today, so many of our young people spend a lot of time online in the cyber world, and if they're not thinking about this might not be safe behavior, or if I see this I need to stay away, then we're not preparing them to succeed in today's society, never mind tomorrow's society. And so cybersecurity is a really important part of that because it addresses all elements. We don't want you to lose your identity. We don't want you to lose your money. And so what steps do you need to take to protect yourself from those dangers? We want you to be able to understand how technology works. Artificial intelligence is just taking the world by storm, not just education, but in technology as well. And so understanding how artificial intelligence works, how you can leverage it in the things that interest you. Here's the thing about AI. It's not just for technology. I read an article where this fashion designer started using artificial intelligence and a little bit of robotics to design her clothing creations, to move on their own, to have the light pattern changes and color changes on their own, And she did that using technology as a tool and AI as part of that. So think about the possibilities, the opportunities that you have by understanding what modern technology brings to the table and applying it to your passion area. And you may discover things and create things that have never existed before that we didn't even know we needed. That is the power. And that's why I think that artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, really the emerging technology that we're going to see are so very important for our Girl Scouts to understand and to use.
At the Girl Scouts of Historic Georgia, we're actually putting our toes into AI programming to help girls be part of that cutting, leading initiative. But you know, instead of just being a consumer of it. But also that kind of leads me to your journey as a Rear Admiral in the Navy as a woman. Tell us a little bit about your journey to get there, any intimidations that you felt, and perhaps some leadership strategies that you used to help you through that journey.
I appreciate that question. First, I'm going to start with, I think I mentioned my father's in the Army. He actually told me, do not go in the Army, your mouth will get you in trouble. So for all the young ladies out there who have a fresh mouth, understand that you can still be successful. There might be some setbacks. You can still be successful in the military. I chose not to join the Army because I do enjoy the ocean so much. I enjoy the freedom and just the serenity that you have on the ocean. And so I did choose to join the Navy. And the path that I've gone on, there haven't been a lot of women. When I went to college, it was in a highly technical degree, not a lot of women. But there are still role models. So they may not look like me, but I can still learn things from people who don't look like me if they've gone through a similar journey. We may not have all of the same experiences, but there's probably something there I can use. For me, one thing that I had to learn very early is to not take people's reactions personally. And I say that because growing up, if somebody had a negative response, it's like, what did I do wrong? Why are they responding that way? At a certain point, I realized it's not my fault. They could be having a terrible day, and the way they're responding to me has nothing to do with me. And so let me just focus on my job, how to get my job done the best way I can, and let that performance speak for itself. And because I've had some really tremendous leaders, some women, mostly men, I've been given the opportunity to truly prove myself and in ways that no one expected me to probably perform the way I did, but I was given the opportunity and I was able to take advantage of it, and it worked out.
Are there any examples or recommendations for girls who might be facing challenging situations in any environment that you can pull from your past and kind of help them navigate?
I think everybody needs a safe outlet, and that person doesn't necessarily need to be in the same job or even in the same area, but somebody that you feel safe to vent to. They may have an insight that could be helpful, but at a minimum, to be able to vent in a safe place so you get the emotion out and it lets your brain start working again. So you can, again, think about the steps that you need to take in order to achieve your goal. Because at the end of the day, if we're letting somebody else stand in our way, then we are not living up to our full potential. And I think that's something that's worth pursuing. So find your safe place and then get back in the fight, because what you can contribute absolutely matters.
That is amazing. Find your safe space and get back in the fight. What great words to live on, not live by, but live on, you know. Some of our girls are thinking about what's next for them. So why should a young Girl Scout think about being in the military as their first career step?
Well, I would just say first job, because when I came in the military, I had no intent of making it a career. And I'm almost 35 years in. But each time when I made a choice, it was a choice to say yes to a new opportunity. And so I think that's really important. But when you're choosing your first job and you're looking for opportunities, I think the Navy is a tremendous opportunity. Anything you can think of doing in the civilian world, we've got that counterpart in the military, right? So if you want to be a dentist or a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer or an airplane mechanic, we have all of that and more. And we have opportunities where you can bring the knowledge that you gained as a Girl Scout. If you have earned the Gold Award and you enlist in the Navy, you automatically get 2 pay raises. So you're automatically getting paid more than somebody else who came in at the same time. And for the folks who want to apply to college, the Navy has up to 4-year scholarships that you can compete for and have the opportunity to get the degree that you're interested in. And if you go enlisted, there's an opportunity to transition to officer. So I think the thing that I would highlight about the Navy is your next decision doesn't need to be your final decision. There are so many pathways to get from where you start to where you want to be. The examples that I'm giving are specific to Navy, but every service has similar opportunities. So I would really encourage Girl Scouts to really explore what the opportunities are.
Wow, and then we can't forget that if you want to just work on the ocean and be out in the middle of the ocean looking up at the stars without any light filters, the Navy is also a great spot to call home, which is very appealing to me. So we want to have a little fun, if that's okay, with just some short response answers. So I'm going to read these off, and you just summarize it however you would like. The most important leadership quality every girl should develop is?
I choose 2. I think you need confidence, because confidence is an important attribute in order to get people to believe in you. The other piece, though, I think is equally important, is humility, because the more you lead, the more you understand that you don't actually know everything. And so having the humility to accept knowledge from wherever it comes, regardless of whether they are much younger than you, which is where I am now, right now, or an expert in a different area, I think those 2 are what help make a really good leader.
A lesson that the Navy taught you about leadership.
Okay. I'm a really bossy person. I've been a bossy person since I was a young person. What the Navy taught me was to leave room for others to lead. Because if you don't, you are going to isolate yourself. You're going to be the person in the corner that nobody wants to play with. And so leave room for other people to lead.
That's great. That's great. When girls believe in themselves, they can
do anything.
Yes.
When I grew up, my mom and my dad, they taught us, I learned how to change a tire, change the oil, cook my dinner, do the laundry. There were no limits. And so I truly believe that girls, when they believe in themselves, they can do anything.
And the best Girl Scout cookie for you is?
Thin Mints.
A campfire under the stars or a Navy ship under the stars?
A Navy ship under the stars.
Could we have a campfire on the Navy ship? Is that allowed?
Maybe a little barbecue pit.
We won't tell the team to send him there like, no ma'am, you can't do that. Okay, we're not bringing a fire to the
We had steel beach picnics. When a ship has been underway long enough, we have steel beach picnics where we start barbecuing on the deck. We have games. If the deck is big enough, there are different games. On a carrier, which holds 5,000 people, we will run a 5K around the deck. And so we do try and make the ship feel as much like home as we can. Celebrate Thanksgiving, Christmas, all the special holidays. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. Definitely makes me want to start all over again. Kind of.
Kind of.
All right, the last one is finish the sentence. Girl Scouts helped prepare me to.
Set goals and accomplish them. I really appreciate this opportunity. I know I wasn't a Girl Scout for very long, but once a Girl Scout,
Always a Girl Scout. Oh,